This is a production of Cornell University.
Scott Myers will be talking about the Woodlyn Acres Farm Organic Grain and Hay Journey. Okay, so Scott Myers is in partnership with his father, Fred, operates the third generation Woodlyn Acres Farm. He and his wife, Nicole, who's here, I believe, and their 4 boys live on the farm in Dalton, Ohio. He started farming full-time with his father in 2001 and has since grown their farm into a diverse organic hay and crop farm. Scott holds a bachelor's degree from the Ohio State University in agricultural economics with a minor in crop science. He has been an active participant in the Ohio Ecological Food and Farming Association's backed Ohio Soil Health Initiative, the Farm Bill Climate Work Group, and the Crop Insurance Work Group, and he serves as the chair of the Policy Committee on the Organic Farmers Association. Woodlyn Acres Farm raises certified organic hay, barley, wheat, oats, cereal rye, corn, sunflowers, peas, and soybeans. All right, on around 2,500 acres in Wayne County, Ohio. So his farm has been certified with OEFFA since 2016, and also holds a real organic certification. So Scott, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you. Take it away.
Thanks, Matt. I didn't know you were going to read that whole thing. Sorry about that. So anyways, yeah, I'm Scott Myers, Woodlyn Acres Farm. And I'm going to go through some things we do on our farm. We've been certified organic since 2016. And we kind of hit on just about everything we've hit on today, almost everything that we've talked about already today, we have done or do currently on our farm, it seems like. So I don't want to say I'm an expert on anything, but I'm trying to. So right here, and we'll go through this and talk a little more about some of the crops, some of the questions I get as I talk to different people. We're going to try to dig into a few of those specific things we go through. But if you see things in here that I don't touch on, please talk to me later. I'm going to be around the rest of the day because as some of you know that talk to me, I can talk about a lot of different things that we've tried and lots of different knowledge on a lot of different things. Yeah, this is us no-tilling rye, or no-tilling, actually I tell everybody it's no-tilling soybeans, but because of the question we had earlier about raising sunflowers and no-till rye, I will admit, I'm actually no-tilling sunflowers in this field, and it was a total failure. And and what we found was, so we actually came back to no-till beans about a month later. What we found was slugs like sunflowers better than they like corn and then they like soybeans. We actually total random made 2 passes with soybeans on the other side of the field because we still had beans left, and the beans grew perfect to the row, and the next row over, we might have had a 5% stand. And I've never seen slugs take a crop as fast or as big as slugs as we had. So my take on that question we had earlier about sunflowers was that we believe it's a slug issue. So that's just what we found. All right, so moving on, this is just an overview of our home farm. I'm actually the 3rd generation. I farmed with my father. We actually looked about going organic back in the 80s. When I was 5 years old, one of the first organic farms in Ohio, some of you may have heard of the Spray Brothers, Rex and Howard Spray, they're in Mount Vernon, Ohio. I remember going there with my father on field days, 5 years old, and seeing this farm. And I always thought it was kind of odd, the organic farmers with the last name of S-P-R-A-Y. That was just a weird coincidence, I guess. But it's kind of neat that we almost did that, but we didn't make that jump. And then, about 12, 13 years ago, we decided to begin our journey into organic and never look back, and basically our entire farm now is certified. So, like I said, it's father-son operation. My wife Nicole has made a trip over here with me. We have 4 boys at home. The oldest is 16, the youngest is 9. They all love the farm. Whether they come back to the farm, I want to make sure that they at least have the opportunity if they want to. But it's great. They enjoy the organic farming part of it, and they're it's interesting to see them talk to their friends and go places as we point out organic foods and things. So it's really neat to have that younger generation coming on. So we own about 500 acres in there, or Wayne County, and then we rent another 2,000 acres. I say 40 different landowners actually ended up the other day, it's actually 44. Because of where we live, we have a lot of our land gets sold and it's split up. And so the last year, we actually didn't add any more acres, but we added 4 more landowners because one of the farms was sold and split into 4 pieces. So we deal with that on a regular basis. It is a struggle in organic to deal with that part, but we have tried to make that work. We are spread out over about 25 miles, and we do always have ground in transition as we rent more land. So as we rent new farms, I would say to start that process, we always start with hay, which we'll talk about a little bit. There's our farm mission statement. It just basically says that what we believe in, and that's what we try to. That's why we're organic right there. So these are our crops. He read these. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but they're there. We're going to talk about most of them as we go through. This is actually a picture of my grandfather on F-14, I believe, plowing way back in the, I don't even know, I should actually get when that was from, but I thought I'd throw that up there. These are our crop rotations, and they're varied. That's like the hardest thing that when I do my OSB, and we're working on currently on regenerative organic certification, they ask, it's like they want this in stone. What is your crop rotation? Well, it all depends. And there's so many things because we raise so many different crops. There's so many different variations on this. But for instance, we are in the hay business. I've been in the hay business since I came back from Ohio State on the farm. That was how I got started. At one point, we had over 1,400 acres of hay. We sell hay. We live in the #1 dairy county in Ohio. We sell hay locally. Most of our hay stays within 50 miles of home. We are really fortunate on top of the fact that we live in a great dairy county. We also live in the 2nd largest concentration of organic valley dairies are within 50 miles of our place. The 1st largest in Wisconsin. So those dairies that are grazing all need to feed hay all winter long. And we have fantastic customers that we work with on a regular basis. So we'll talk a little more about the hay, but the hay is basically the basis for all of our crop rotations, except a few fields that just can't graze hay with really heavy ground. But then we like to go from hay to corn. That's our simplest rotation.
Is that also a big Amish county?
Yes. Yeah. So our Wayne County, Holmes County is the south. That's one of the largest populations of Amish in the world. So we have actually a lot of Amish landowners and a lot of Amish residents. So corn for us is one of the easiest things to go after hay. And then a lot of times we will go into spring wheat. We'll talk about it a little later with clover underseeded. And then we actually will go from spring wheat to winter wheat sometimes, and then back to hay. Depends if we're going to put, we'll talk about sunflowers, soybeans. It's just such a varied rotation. So there's not one rotation that I figured that works perfect on every field. It's kind of field specific. And one thing we will talk about when we get to the no-till soybeans, about why we don't do no-till soybeans very much. So nutrients, these are our main nutrients. We're a big believer in gypsum. We actually have an open standing order with the trucking company that brings us mined gypsum from up in Michigan, pretty much year round, and dumps it under storage because we put 500 tons of gypsum every acre, every single year, no matter what crops in there. We are trying to raise soluble calcium levels and soluble nutrient levels in our soils as high as we can, because we found that we control easier on our farm. So we're in gypsum. The other product that we see, obviously chicken, we spread a lot of chicken litter. Another unique thing about our area, we don't own any chickens on our farm, but the farthest we haul chicken litter from chicken house to field is 4 months. So we have fields with many different chicken growers, and 75% of that litter is from organic litter. But we have a lot of agreements with these houses that we keep them cleaned out. They pile at the end, and we get rid of it immediately. We're to the piles or storage and spread. So we're really fortunate to get that. This other product here is a newer product for us. It's bone meal. It is produced locally there as well. It actually produced about 100 miles away. It comes from chickens. And it's super high in nitrogen, and it's super high in phosphorus. and calcium. The nitrogen is why we're using it. We used to use Chilean nitrate. I personally despise Chilean nitrate because it's sodium nitrate. Putting sodium on the soil is not good for soil health. Okay, so we need to be careful how we use that. The other reason I don't like Chilean nitrate, personal opinion, and I have no basis for this other than I know it's an important thing that comes from Chile. We don't know. You know, someday they might come out and say, "Oh, look, there were children buying that. Do we want to be responsible? I don't want to be responsible for that or something." Go ahead.
Are these qualified?
So, acids are qualifying. So, no, on the gypsum, we do not apply gypsum in the fall because it will leach. So we want to keep that. We try to do it all in the spring, in the sense that in a situation of hay, we immediately after first cutting. And, only place that gets qualified would be on the winter crops, like, wheat, stuff like that. Everything else is spring. Or in the case of corn, soybeans, we try to get it on in the top inch of the soil, so it'll be right before maybe that last tillage pass or right on top. Because our goal is to get the soluble calcium level in the top of the soil, top inch of the soil, as high as possible. So look, that's kind of the nutrients we use. There's how we spread, the gypsum, bone meal, we spread just with the standard fertilizer line spreader, combination spreader. That they both go through there, fantastic. And then we do some foliar feeding and liquid in row stuff. I used to do a lot more foliar feeding than I do now. I don't see as big of benefits. I think part of that is because as we did in organic more, our soil has become more biologically active and we just don't see the benefits. I still believe in putting in-row fertilizer though. I guess I started with foliar. Like I said, that's what we do on foliar when we do it. We don't always do it though. We see the biggest benefit on small grains, raising protein levels in wheat. That's where we see a real big benefit. This nutrition N is a biological that is approved in organic production. And while it will work in corn, and I've seen it work in corn, we see it work on a consistent basis in small grains. I've never had a year where it has not made us fat, small grains. Especially since, once again, protein is nitrogen. If you want high protein in your small grains and your wheat, you need to have high nitrogen. So, but in row, we want to get our corn and soybeans and sunflowers off to a really quick start. We want them to beat the weeds out of the ground, as fast as they can get out of the ground. So we do use in row. That's what we're using. With Graham O usually, and some of the agri biological products and stuff. This SPE 120 that you see towards the bottom there, that's a biostimulant. It's Bavarian Bassiana. I found out about this when it first came out of it. The company approached me, hey, we have this product, might get interest. We deal with a lot of them in aflatoxin area. They said, you might try it. We don't know. We don't have the studies done yet. It might help with that. It also helps with just root health and things like that. So we use it first year. We have 10 bushel increase on corn. Now, I don't get that every year. Some years we get an increase, some years we don't. But since we started using that 6 years ago, we've not had any issues with vomitoxin or aflatoxins on any of the crops that we use. So we use it on everything. And it's seed applied, or can also be put liquid on the seed too. So we use neem oil then in the row just for seed corn maggot control, things like that. We only try to use it in the soil in the row. So I'll go through some of the tillage things. You're gonna see a lot of equipment coming up here and things. We do still do some more work plowing. I found the best way to take a hayfield that's been in hay out of production, still shallow the work plow. We don't like to go deeper than 6 inches, and we like to get some growth in the spring before we plow it. Because basically, if you've ever heard Gary Zimmer talk, I believe the same thing. That's pure nitrogen coming from a hay producer. If that stuff's 23-25% protein, 85% fail that. That is pure nitrogen, and that is very readily available when you plow that here to that corn crop. So we let that stuff hit, about a foot tall, maybe a little taller than that. You can see our clover, red clover, which we use after wheat. We're actually going to start on seeding next week. The way the weather looks in Ohio should be perfect. We'll do that, and then we shallow plow that in, or sometimes we'll use our lemkin as well. We love our high-speed disc, but there's It's so dependent. One year we're using a whole bunch in the spring, and the next year we might have wetter conditions, and then the fireworks. So it's, they're games, very specific with weather every time. So flail shredding. I used to think we didn't need a flail shredder. Lemkin, that'll work. But sometimes your cover crops get out of control. You need to get them shredded down so that lemkin can work better, even on a plow. You need to get it down so you can plow the ball under and get it in contact with the soil. The other thing we like to do with our clover is our cross-seeded clover. We try not to make that for hay, because I already take removing enough nutrients off the farm and making hay. So when we have cross-seeded clover, we want to mow that though. It stimulates the roots to grow and make more nutrients, put it in the soil. So we'll actually go in every 35 days on that clover and flail shred it down, and then it works really good. It'll just regrow. And just basically like you're making hay out of it, except for shredded in the soil. It's just makes for a fantastic soil next year when we plant. So one thing we've not heard much about today is flame weeding. We ended up with propane flame weeder 4 years ago, and first couple of years a little scary. Once first couple times you flame corn, it looks pretty bad. Actually, I'm going to go to the next slide. So when we flame little corn. And so this, the one on your left, that would be, I'm trying to remember. Okay, that would be within 6 hours after you flame, maybe a little longer. So it looks pretty bad. My neighbors, they all joke. I like to, kind weed too. And, after 3 days after, they're like, "Oh, you killed your corn." Then they come back and do this, and like, he killed his corn again. And I have one neighbor. He doesn't. He swears they come out at night and replant. No way that's not. So that's within 24 hours. This is usually the next day, maybe 2 days later. This is 5 days later. So what we're trying to do is basically sterilize the soil or kill all the little weeds that are just in a band. We don't do broadcasting. It's a waste of fuel. That's why I have a cultivator. It's easy to cultivate into it's hard, you can't cultivate it into corn plants. So by doing this, we have now basically created a weed-free zone right over the corn, and it has worked fantastic. And then when we get to this stage, about a week later, we'll come back. We have with an unbox cultivator, which you'll see later, and then we'll do start cultivating. One thing that we found out accidentally, well, sort of accidentally, we found that flaming corn at this stage actually increases the yield. I would love to see somebody do a study, but we have done 2 side-by-sides 2 years in a row. One was on purpose. The second year, the first time we ran out of fuel and we never came back. And where we flamed it, it yielded 10 bushels better. There was no weed difference because it was in a field. We didn't go back because we didn't have weed pressure. We were going to drive 20 miles with a tank of fuel for 3 rounds. And yeah, it made the corns better. And we could not, and all we contributed to is flaming it. It hurt. I know in soybeans they say that happens, but we think that maybe there's something there too. One thing I want you to see though is we do have shields on the flamers. Some flamers out there don't have shields. Nothing wrong with no shields. The great thing about shields though is we use less propane. We use about 4 gallons per acre when we're doing tiny corn. And then when we get into bigger corn, maybe second Passover or bigger weeds, we might use 6 gallons. But those shields keep the heat close to the ground where you need it longer, so you don't have to use as much fuel. So it's more efficient. Our propane costs, it's like $10 a gallon. So it's not very expensive. So yeah, we have not flamed soybeans. I'm a little scared too. People tell me horror stories, but we do flame sunflowers. It works very good with sunflowers. It works very good. I'll touch a little on tightening and row cultivation. A lot of you guys are familiar with this, so I need to tell you something you already know. We have a lot of equipment, but we have some other cultivators that are out here too, single sweep, high residue cultivators, things like that. You can never have cultivators. I bought used cultivators, you find them for cheap. You can redo them and they work great. Because when I first became organic, before we were organic, I was conventional, no till. operation, a sprayer, 120-foot boom. And one of the first people that, when I got into it, I remember they said you need to have the same capacity to cultivate that you have to spray now. Not gonna laugh. 110-foot boom, 10-mile-an-hour sprayer. That's a lot, but he's right. And so we actually have enough cultivators, maybe not quite there, but we have cultivated 400 acres, and we don't have big fields. Our fields are like around here, 400 acres in one day, and been done by dark. So we have lots of cultivators. We have tiny weeders. We like the tiny weed, basically blind cultivation in 3 days after planting. When we have the white weeds there and do that. So we have the 2 different tiny weeders, the regular standard ones you see with it, just standard times, and we have a rotary one. The rotary one works great in high residue situations. The other one's basically a buck break if you get in high residue situations, then you end up. And that's why we ended up with the other, because there's a lot of times we will end up in situations.
The rotary looks good.
It does in blind situations when there's no corn ground. We do very little tiny weeding after the crop stop in normal weeds. I just have not had, I haven't seen the benefit, and in small grains as well. Tor over here, he told me that I had tiny weed my spring weed when I did it. The first guy said, "You got to do that." And I went out and made 2 rounds and said, "This is awful." Yeah, he said, "Don't look back." And so we didn't do it, and it didn't hurt. The yield was no different between the 2. I don't know, maybe I wasn't doing it right. So anyways, so then we're gonna talk drills, planters, stuff like that. We do a lot of different things. Like I said, frost seeding, this is our frost seeding ring. This is what we'll be on next week. One of my employees, my father loves to run the thing. He doesn't hold a lot, it costs a lot of money for that little sprayer, and actually paid $20 in the neighbor's retirement. But then we do a lot of cover crops, so we have this 30-foot drill, we can do no-till, but it also has a big tank on it. So when you're planting small grains, it's important, we've talked about high seeding rates. When you're doing high seeding rates, you need to make sure you're not filling up every round. Because in some situations, if you're planting 3 bushels an acre, which we do sometimes in rye or wheat, some of our wheats and stuff like that, we're planting 3 bushels an acre. That's 180 pounds the acre. Even with that drill, we get 4,000 pounds in that drill. That's only like 25 acres planting. If we're going to plant 400 or 500 acres or something, that's a lot of bullets even with that drill. But this little smaller drill, it's really a lot. So we're looking at efficiency. I'm a numbers guy. I have an econ degree, so I look at my numbers a lot. That really matters because I love organic farming. I couldn't go back to being a conventional farmer, but and I believe organic farming is by far the most sustainable way to farm. But if you're not making a profit, you're not going to be sustainable. That's bottom line. We got to be involved. So planter wise, we have 2 different planters. So the big planter, the 16 row, that has our, it actually is, we'll talk about the Dawn roller crimper on the front of it. But we love that for soybeans. We use it a little bit in corn. We used to use it all in corn. It has all the precision planting stuff on it. It's left over from our no-till days. So it has all the great goods. This other planter, I paid $3,500 for out of Iowa. It's an 8 row. Somebody modified it to fold up because we have an arrow that's coming. You guys see around here. But it's a 3.9. Back in the 90s, our farm was all strips. We had a 6-row line. And all the neighbors thought we'd be crazy. They're like, what a waste of time and money. And my dad said, wait a second. At the end of the row, I literally turned right around and go right back. And so we are getting away from putting headlands. We were leaving a 20-foot grass strip. And we were using 3.5 in corn because headlands are where we get weeds, where we drive on the crop. And by leaving that 20-foot strip, our yields are not going down. Yields are staying the same, and we're moving from foot on in grass at the level. So that's one thing. The other thing is RTK guidance. We have let all of our lines out repeatable. All of our tractors have RTK guidance, almost all. But they're repeatable. All of our Fendt tractors share lines between each other, and it makes weed control every other pass so much simpler. But when you have a big trail planter like that, that's really hard on rolling ground. without expensive extra steering and stuff like that, to be exact. And we need to be exact. I'm not talking, if being off an inch is still not exact. Oh, here's a video of rolling rye from the tractor. You may, it should be close up here, you just see the rollers. Earlier there was a mention about going to a roller that is small, that is narrower, so it follows the ground contours, and that's why we went with this. We do not have big flat fields, we don't have, you know, a lot of times we plant rye, if we happen to no-till it, usually we do a little bit of tillage, but it's not smooth out there, so to get a good grim, we gotta have, it needs to be able to flex in those rust fields. So we really like that. We also like the way, with the amount on the planter, it rolls it. It's hard to explain without seeing it in person, but it pushes it down right ahead, so then you're not actually hairpinning into the furrow with the coulters. It kind of pushes it out of the way the bone setup works. So it works really slick. Well, it's continuous. So it's, yeah, and they use hydraulic down pressure. So there's the whole way around. It's kind of the same idea for hydraulic down pressure that you use like a no-till drill, and then you can adjust it.
What do you use for clothing?
For closing wheels, well, so we're actually just using good old rubber wheels. We went back to that. I have spike closing wheels that I use for no-till conventional for years. We planted in all cover crops, but when we started rolling, all it does is make a big round bed back there. A lot of times if you get into it wrong. And so you have to be really careful. So we found it works really good that way. Another trick we found planting soybeans into this is you need to plant deep. And we do that even with our regular plants. We, you know, like to say an inch deep. We'll plant in this situation, I'll plant 3 inches deep, you know, and it'll be closed. The slot may, when you're walking top, may not look closed, but you can't see the seed. It's closed down far enough that it'll come up. So there's our beans just coming up. Not a perfect stand, but it'll be enough that we'll get a good yield out of that. You see, there's some weeds. It's not a perfect situation, and that's what I'm going to talk about. This is the system we have now moved to. Part of the reason is when we no-till under rye, we have now went to raising food grade wheat. We cannot have rye in our wheat, and there is no way to follow no-till beans that have rye in it and go in and plant food grade wheat and not have some wheat volunteer wheat in there. So we have to get away from that. And I'm hoping that we can figure out our crop rotation, maybe that we can bring it back, because it does work. The other problem we have is we have inconsistent soils. We can have 5 soil types in a 20-acre field, if not more. And when you overwinter, we'll have die-off. So then we have issues with spots that don't have any rye or rolls. So now what we've started doing is we plant rye at the same time in the spring that we plant soybeans. This gets us in actually a month early to plant our beans. So instead of waiting until the rye is in the proper stage of roll, which is, you know, like late May, now we are planting usually the last week of April, the first week of May. And we will literally go in with our drill on 7.5 inch spacing, the big drill you saw, plant 2 bushel of rye, and we are in the same field planting with the beans. And then this is what the rye actually goes through the stage. In this picture, you'll see, you don't see the rows over to this side. This is my, actually a trial we were doing on 15-inch rows too, to see which we like better. Yield was no different, but the 30-inch rows give me spot drum if I need to, or if I need to come back and row elevate, or I really like this row mow idea. But so this is the stage when we plant. You can see here's the beans just cracking through. You can see the rye on the side. The other great thing about this is the rye comes up a few days before the beans. So we are reducing the amount of days that we have open soil there to run off. We can get something growing quicker. So this is a little bit later, not sure, probably a week or so later. Beans are coming up now. We have time weeded these when they were small, back before the other picture were getting weeded. And amazingly, the rye still makes it through. So there's the picture we saw. And this is, at this point, I had one of my landowners who never had an organic farmer on his farm before. First, it was the second year I had organic crops on his farm. And I told him I was planting beans. He calls me, and we went away for the weekend or something. And I get this really nasty phone call. And just so you know, his son works for Bear Montana. And so they are like, yeah, I can't do anything right. So he's like, what kind of mess you have out there? You know, I know you're planting soybeans and blah, 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 this and that. And actually, this is fun. And he's like, there's no way, you know, what a mess. So I told him what it was. And he's like, oh, yeah, those are pretty good. And so we went on, and this is what they look like a few weeks later. So now the rye basically just kind of starts to wilt and disappear. And it'll literally, by the time we harvest, you won't be able to see it. It'll just kind of disappear and go away. So then, oh, there's our wheat sample picture. Sometimes, this is not the same field, but sometimes we do reduce some weed zapping. Every year is different. Some years I'll use a weed zapper on a whole bunch of acres multiple times. Other years, I might get a weed zapper out except for the edges. It just depends on the year. We do. But this is that field, the first field that had rye in it. And this field actually made over 70 bushels an acre. And the neighbor or the landowner, he actually was sitting in his truck when I was harvesting this. And I made him call him to come and ride, he didn't believe. And so he was impressed. Now his son, who has a test lot with dicamba for 240 resistant beans right across the road, had kind of egg still this fall. That harvest, my organic inspector thought was quite interesting. She took a picture of it for a record. And we didn't weed zap this field at all. So it did well. There's a few weeds. I'm not gonna say I can see it. It's just part of it. What I want to show though is I talk about economics, and I'm going to show you this on corn too. And so this is comparing for all us organic farmers here. We see lower prices, and we're like, oh man, this sucks, and it does. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, we don't like to see low organic prices, but we need to look compared to what the conventional. So if you look, I guess it does. Okay, so even and yield wise, we're very similar. Our farm yields have actually went up. Yeah, on corn especially, very similar on that. We no longer raise any conventional crops, but I had to dig through budgets and review some of them. And these are the high points. But for instance, let's just look at our costs here. Right here, organic with that companion crop, which would be similar to our no-till organic, just under $600 an acre. The conventional no-till guys, with the chemicals they're using, they're over 600. Their costs are higher. And so you can see the price per bushel. So then we have the bonus of, obviously the price, so the higher cost. Everybody's costs are different. But that figures are rent in, that figures are time, labor, and so many other things. But I try to explain to people, we have to remember, things aren't as bad sometimes on prices. I'll tell you a coin. So legumes, we're big into legumes before corn and small grains, because we need to grow as much as we can. Peas, we are now using Austrian winter peas, which I'll talk a little bit more about how we use those to plant them in the fall. We actually no-till those into being stubble, 3.5 inches deep. Usually after Thanksgiving, they may or ideally they don't come up, but they end up usually coming up the way our winters have been. And then we let them grow till about mid to late May, and we plow them down and plant them. But my preferred one is red clover or just a hay. This just shows what we're going. Those worms, those are my workhorses. That's what counts. That's what's making my nutrients available. What we have. You can see there's a pea plant, but there's a little bit of rye out there. You can see you see we got some fixing stuff going. Yeah, it's just really good. It's really a nice situation. So here's the Austrian winter peas. That picture on the left, that would have been taken. These are all a whole year ago, but this would have been taken in December a whole year ago. And so you can see what they look like. They don't look like much. When we're just planting for cover crop, we plant 100 pounds an acre. And ideally, I don't want them any taller than what this last picture is. But last year's winter was a little warmer, so they did get taller. So then we let them grow. I said this was actually, I went back and looked. This is May 26th, the middle picture. The left picture. The right picture was earlier in May. You can see what they look like, but they had gotten 6 feet tall, and we are running this old disc over them because we couldn't get them to plow because they were so stringy. They're 6 feet tall, now they're laying all over the ground. So we ran just a big disc over them, knocked them down and plowed them, and you can see, see what they look like. They're providing a ton of nitrogen. So this is that cornfield. The corn was planted on May 26th. This is this cornfield. Later in summer, the cornfield averaged 250 bushel per acre. And that's average. That's what the edges are. So one thing we've been working on doing is the average that matters. Yeah, we can talk about crazy numbers and stuff like that, but it's the average that matters because that's what pays the bills. So our farm average is not normally 200. Very honest. The last 2 years have been very fortunate with good weather on farm. As you'll see on my budgets, I use 150. Back here, you'll see I'm saying showing 30 bushel less than conventional guys, but our costs are $900 an acre compared to the conventional guys. Not they're 9.4. So we're still very similar. Yeah, maybe we're getting $8 a bushel, and it's not $10, $12 a bushel, but we're still profitable, and that's like I said, in my mind. If we can be profitable, that's it. These conventional rental guys, which used to be me, right now when they talk to their banker or something or whatever, that's going to be a tough discussion. I know my banker would have a tough discussion. Small grains, we said we raised some different wheat, oats, cereal rye, barley. I think the top one is spring wheat. That was sort of my first year. That's the picture I sent before. So we raise hard red winter wheat. Yeah, so there's even a picture of right there. So we raise hard red winter wheat or farm ground flour up here in New York, and we use spring wheat and winter wheat. And at my chance meeting, and I tell people, when it comes to marketing, we come to these meetings, and some people are like, oh, we're wasting time. It was total chance. Purdue had their first ever organic meeting, just like you guys every day. I didn't know tour from anywhere. I was speaking on hay production. He was speaking on grain production. We got to know each other. We become friends, and it just kind of worked out. He needed another person that raised wheat and out of the area, and it's worked out. And we found that we have a little different climate, so it's nice to have that kind of works together with spreading the risk. But a few years ago, Nicole and I came up here and came to Doors Farm for the first time. And, so we enjoy that. Enjoy the friendships we make in this and being able to call somebody with questions. It always helps. You need a mentor when you're in organic and getting into organic. Even if you're long-term organic, it's all about communication, talking, and finding out what works for one person, what doesn't. Because we all have so much information. That's one of the cool things about organic over conventional. When I was a conventional farmer, it's like always a secret. Nobody wants to talk. One farmer doesn't want to share because you might take it. Maybe you'll take his farm ground or something. I would, we don't. We're all very open group, and we appreciate it. So we do raise oats. That's actually a weird one that started right when we started raising hay in the early 2000s. We found an oat variety that we could raise basically 38 to 40 pound test weight oats in Ohio, which is unheard of. Basically Canadian test weight oats in Ohio. And on top of that, our protein is 2% higher than Canadian. So before we were organic, we were selling this to a local feed mill for their feed rations. And then we built a following amongst all the ownership there. And so we deliver usually between 15 and 20,000 bushels, 225 to 250 bushel at a time. They're all our neighbors. And they don't care if it's organic, but they love the service. And we do all right on price. And it's usually within about 20 miles, but I have 6 of those gravity wagons. We're just driving them. So it works out good. You take it there, you let them unplug because it never fails. And I've had this with even some English folks owners too, that they want you to shovel. And so I take the wagon, I put it in the barn for them. I really want. I'm not saying help them, I'm just calling what it's done. There's nothing worse than shoveling that into a granary that's 6 feet up in there. So barley, we were talking earlier, a couple of us, about we raised quite a bit of barley. We've raised barley on our farms since the 1970s. My father was a hog operation. He loved it, and his feed ration with for hogs. He would replace the corn. One of the cool things, we kept raising barley, and our local water conservancy district is called Muskingum Watershed Conservancy District. They actually have taken their fees that they charge landowners for. So instead of going, dredging out the waterways and stuff, they've been for almost 20 years now, paying farmers to put cover crops on it. So they had this program, and we got into supplying the seed because we can supply the seed cheaper than they can go and get it from, say, Canada or whatever. So we supply them, they supply between 5,000 and 6,000 acres a year with 3 planes. And we provide them with a barley oats mix that they put on. Used to be a rye oats mix. Personally, I prefer the rye oats mix, but all these conventional farmers are scared of rye in the wet spring. When rye gets this tall, it makes them get nervous. And so they like barley. Barley works, but it's a great outlet for us. So we sell probably 7,000 or 8,000 bushel of oats just for farming, just for its cover. And that's worked well. It's also, we're going to talk about sunflowers in a second. Almost all of our sunflowers are double crop behind barley. I heard Peter ask about that earlier. So we've had really good luck with that. We also raise some single crop ones, but it seems like for us in Ohio, the later we plant them up to a point, we can plant them up to about the 4th of July. The later we plant them, the better the yield, and the better the disease, disease resistance, and all the other things. So we don't actually plant. They prefer dry weather. Sunflowers thrive. We had really dry weather this year, and we had the best sunflower yield ever. So here's some sunflower pictures of our sunflowers. This is what they look like. They're right. What Heather said earlier, she said 30,000. We plant 25,000, but we don't want to plant too little because you get these huge heads. And I've not had a drying problem because we take all our sunflowers off at 15% moisture and then air dry them in a bin with just air, and we get them down to 10%. But the problem is when they're big heads, every time one does fall on the head, you have a big mess because you lost a lot more of them. Plus, they're a lot harder to harvest with the big heads and thresh. So a nice consistent head size. So it shows what our average yields in Ohio have been around 1,800, 2,000 pounds the acre. This year, we actually averaged 2,400 pounds the acre. That's the best yield we've had average. But I've also had a year where I've averaged 1,300 pounds. Wet years are, like I said earlier, wet is terrible. Especially if it's wet the first 3 weeks when you plant. If the forecast is for wet weather and you're planting sunflowers, leave them back. You're better off to wait till it dries out, because you will end up having to replant them or have a weed mess, or they'll have disease problems that just do not want to plant. So Purdue Agribusiness, who some of you know, they do contract. I have nothing in it. And some of you may know my views on Purdue, well, we live there, but I still do contract with them. It's a great place for a market for some, and they do, they have that market and it's been good. I just wish their prices were higher. And so on the hay sales, I'll just hit on this a little bit. I could speak for an hour on that, but we'll just get out quick. So our goal has always been to provide consistent, high quality dairy hay locally and then deliver it in small quantities, rather than a lot of the hay used to come in from out west in our area in semis. A lot of customers don't want to have to pay for an entire semi at one time. So we will deliver basically half semi straight up and dump them. Everything's wrapped, nothing dry. And I said about quality, everything's tested, and our best quality hay, we consistently can raise 180 to 200 RFG hay, 25 to 26% protein hay. But we don't want it, because not every customer wants that. Every customer is different, and we raise everything from lower quality first cutting up to that premium. So, and everything's sold privately. We don't go through auctions. I basically built a mailing list over the past 20 some years of customers that have bought from me, and with over 1,000 names on it, I send that list out, and that's pretty much how we sell all of our hay. And they basically call us. While we've been here today, I probably had 5. It's been a good thing. Like I said, it is what allowed us to get into organic, but it's also what pushed me to get into organic. Back in 2000, I think 14 or 15, whole bunch of my conventional dairies, small conventional dairies, within about a 3-week time span in November of that year. I remember I got all these phone calls canceling their hay orders because they were going to go organic. They were getting picked up by Organic Valley. And I was bummed. And the next question I was, but I don't worry again hay. And so that kind of, I had been thinking about switching to organic, and that gave me the push to keep going and kind of driven this whole way. This is just, so when we make hay, we talk about efficiency. I think I might have a video later, but this, we have run 3 wrappers. There's 2 big square rails we're running. I have a pickup crew. Usually there's probably 9 or 10 of us that working, but on a, you know, the best day we've ever had was 1,800 big square rails baled and wrapped, and we were done in the house by 10 o'clock that night. So we can pretty much bale 100 bales an hour per baler, so that's 200 bales an hour, and we can pick up that many. And wrapping is maybe not quite that much, but yeah, it's a fast process because I don't want those bales, once they're baled, to sit very long before they get to their house. I want them as fast as possible. So we're getting 5 cuttings most of the time. We start making hay usually last week of April, first of May is what we shoot for, and then every 28 days after that. But that's all kind of weather. So if it rains, it's done. We've had up to 7 cuttings. I made hay as early as the middle of April on a weird year to get early, and I've also made hay as up to the day after Thanksgiving. So that's my contact info. I'm going to go past it here just to show you a couple other things. How my time? Okay. Pretty okay. Yeah. I think I want to talk about this. Said about the Organic Farmers Association. So I'm the policy chair on the elected. I'm elected the Organic Farmers Association. We are working on I along with Amy Brooke from the National Organic Standards Board are working on some legislation, which who knows the way things are in DC right now, but we've been working on this for 18 months. And we need your guys' support. If you want, we're trying to get imported organic grains to be tested. Right now, imported organic grains, fraudulent or not, a lot of times aren't held to the same standards that our domestic supply is. A lot of us domestic growers, we deliver grain, might get tested for GMO, whatever, might get tested. A lot of this stuff that's coming in from other countries, they don't test it. At a local place, we were delivering soybeans and testing our grain for GMO contamination. There's trucks coming in from a barge. I found out later from Argentina. They weren't tested because they said they already. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And so if you feel led to do it, I would appreciate it. And if you don't get it here, our booth, I have a booth out there, and you can find it. But if you you scan this with your phone, and there's a quick little thing. Sign on your support. But like I said, if you come to our booth, the same thing's on the booth, and we're trying to we need to show support to specifically Amy, senator from Nebraska, who's going to be the one introducing this. He wants to see support from organic farmers, organic consumers, organic eaters, that supports organic. So I would appreciate your support of that. So with that, that's all I have. You got questions here?
I want to say one thing, because these two, I've been to a lot of different conferences, and I helped Ohio State start theirs 3 years ago. You guys don't realize how good you have it. This is a fantastic turnout for a first conference. I mean, and you guys have done a fantastic job. I mean, this has been really good. So I think we need to give them.
Thanks, Scott.
Oh, yeah, I forgot a question. Yeah.
Scott, I have a question for you, actually.
Okay. Yep.
How late are you planting your sunflowers? And how late can you plant your sunflowers? Because I've heard that you can go pretty late and still get decent yields, but.
So we plant July 4th is our date that we go by. I plant them up to the 10th of July. And with the later falls we've not had any problems. I probably can go even later than that. I'm going to try them this year after week to see if I can do it. But yeah, so I would say in that respect. Now you do plant the shorter season. You don't want to plant you plant the long season.
Any other questions? Any questions for Scott?
I want to thank you for the encouragement, just to show the numbers of possibility to invite as well. So us, the majority of us are getting out here, right? And when we get encouraged by that,
Appreciate that, and you said about being isolated, and you don't want, it's, you're isolated, and yet you guys have this great community here, so it's really good now. Yes, it's neat, we have a similar situation, and honestly, it's not, you guys have a way better group of people up here, we have a great organic group down our area, but nothing like this. So, I couple about that quick.
This probably wasn't taped, but it sure would be great to share it with some friends.
It is taped.
It is taped.
It's taped.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Great.
Good.
Yeah, we got you around.
How long is seed farm you plant, and what is your average cross fade farm?
So we plant in our area, now I'll answer the long season corn part, two words. We, normally in our area, most people plant 110-day corn. We plant, the longest we plant is 104, or 105, and we go down to 95. I like to plant, we try to take our corn off earlier, when we're no-tilling, when we're planting wheat, planting rye in the till, we will take our corn off at 28% moisture and dry it down. We like to start it early in October. Our frost date is usually in October.
What's your biggest crop in terms of acreage?
Usually hay or, and those are probably my most, I would say on average, most problem. I see. But you're there.
Any issue to the seed corn maggot after planting so soon after, planting?
So, good question. That's why we plow, and, so we try to bury it enough. What we found is if we run the lemon in a high-speed disc and we only bury it like 2 inches deep, we have to wait usually 2 weeks. And what we've gotten caught there is it has to be dry, and the soil's dry. We actually waited 2 weeks, planted and then it rained, and then we had some maggot. So that's why we plow, we try to bury it like 6 inches deep, and then we come back the next day before things dry out and plant right. That's how we get around it. Yeah.
When you plant the rye into what was it, your soybeans,
Mhm.
so it won't burn the lights.
Correct. Yeah.
What's your row spacing on the drill?
The drill is 7.5 inches. Yes,
Two questions on your flame weeding.
Mhm.
Do you flame all your corn acres?
Yeah, we try to.
You try to.
Yeah, we try to. It doesn't always happen.
And do you only do the in-row flaming? Because you talked about the in-row flaming, but then I saw a picture of inter-row flaming.
So we only flame over the row. We don't flame in between the rows because, and we never, it can be set up to what they call broadcast flame. And I know some people that do that and they say it works really good, but it's just, you use it at least twice as much propane and slower. So I'm like, this just be over the row. We can drive about 4.5 miles.
We were telling the story earlier about how like the soybean and the cereal rye were growing at the same time, and then at some point the cereal rye was like the pressed. I think I missed it. How did that happen?
So the cereal rye, because it's a winter crop and it doesn't vernalize, it will get about, and it depends on how much moisture you have. If it's dry, it won't get as tall, but it'll only get about that tall, and then it'll just kind of goes away because it can't, because if it's vernalized, it's not going to go into its reproductive state. And so it just kind of dies, basically. I've only ever had it fail one time, of course, it's this year, because it was dry. Our farm, or our home place, we were dry, but not super dry, and we planted early. Where we planted early, like I said, we did great. Where we came back, we had some later ones, or 2 weeks later, our beans were there, because it was just in the wrong situation.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.